flames were so close Marcus could feel them singing the hair on his arms, but he kept running deeper into the inferno because somewhere in that wall of fire and smoke, a little girl was screaming for help. His own daughter was safe, evacuated miles away, but this child, this stranger's child, was trapped in a vacation cabin that was about to become ash. Every instinct told him to turn back, but her cries pierced through the roar of the wildfire, and Marcus knew he couldn't live with himself if he didn't try. If stories like this touch your heart, we'd love to have you join our Sage Stories family. Please subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and share in the comments how acts of courage and kindness have impacted your life. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful reminders of human goodness. Marcus Chen had been a single father for 3 years, ever since his wife Sarah passed away from cancer. He worked double shifts as an EMT in Sacramento, doing everything he could to provide for his 8-year-old daughter Lily. Life wasn't easy, money was always tight, but they had each other, and Marcus made sure Lily knew she was loved every single day. They had a tiny apartment on the edge of town, and their idea of a vacation was driving up to the national forest for a day hike and a picnic. Marcus would pack peanut butter sandwiches, and Lily would collect pine cones and interesting rocks, declaring each one a treasure worth keeping. That September, California was burning. Wildfires had consumed thousands of acres, and the one creeping toward the mountain communities near Lake Tahoe was among the worst. Marcus had worked 3 consecutive shifts helping evacuate residents from the fire's path, barely sleeping, running on coffee and adrenaline. On his 4th day, he was finally sent home to rest, but as he drove through the smoke-hazed streets, he couldn't shake the images of families fleeing their homes, of elderly people clutching photo albums, of the raw fear in everyone's eyes. He picked up Lily from his neighbor's house, grateful once again for Mrs. Rodriguez who watched her whenever his shifts ran long. Lily hugged him tight, her small face pressed against his uniform, and asked if the fires were going to reach them. Marcus smoothed her hair and promised they were safe, that brave firefighters were working hard to protect their community. That night, as he tucked her into bed, Lily looked up at him with those serious brown eyes that reminded him so much of Sarah and said, "Daddy, you're brave too. You help people just like the firefighters." Marcus kissed her forehead, his heart swelling with love for this incredible little person who gave his life meaning. The next morning, Marcus was called back to work unexpectedly. A new evacuation zone had been declared, and they needed all available personnel. Mrs. Rodriguez was visiting her sister in Stockton, but Marcus's younger brother Danny agreed to watch Lily. Marcus hated leaving her again so soon, but this was his job, his calling. He'd become an EMT because he wanted to help people, to make a difference, and right now his community needed him desperately. The evacuation area was chaotic. Marcus and his partner Julie drove from house to house, helping residents gather essentials and get to safety. The sky was an apocalyptic orange, ash falling like snow, and the smell of burning pine was overwhelming. They'd been working for hours when a call came through dispatch about a family trapped in a rental cabin up Canyon Road. The fire had moved faster than predicted, cutting off their escape route. Marcus and Julie looked at each other and didn't hesitate. They took the ambulance as far as they could before a fallen tree blocked the road. Marcus grabbed his medical kit and started running toward the cabin on foot. Julie stayed with the ambulance to coordinate with fire crews. The heat was intense, flames dancing through the trees on both sides of the road. His training told him this was dangerous, possibly suicidal, but his heart told him someone needed help. Through the smoke, he could see the cabin, flames already consuming the back portion. A man was standing outside, screaming into a cell phone, his face streaked with soot and tears. Marcus reached him and immediately assessed the situation. The man was Robert Hastings, a tech CEO from San Francisco who'd brought his family up for a weekend getaway. His wife and teenage son had made it out, but his 6-year-old daughter Emma had panicked and run back inside for her stuffed rabbit. Robert had tried to go after her, but the smoke was too thick, and his wife had pulled him back out. Emma was somewhere in that burning cabin, terrified and alone. Marcus didn't think. He soaked his uniform shirt in water from a garden hose, covered his mouth and nose, and plunged into the cabin. The heat was unbearable, smoke stinging his eyes until tears poured down his face. He dropped low, crawling through rooms he could barely see, calling out for Emma. The structure groaned around him, timbers cracking from the flames. He was about to turn back when he heard it, a small whimper coming from behind a couch in what looked like a bedroom. Emma was curled in a ball, clutching a pink rabbit, coughing so hard her whole body shook. Marcus scooped her up, wrapped her in his wet shirt, and ran. A beam crashed down behind them, sparks exploding. He burst through the front door just as part of the roof collapsed, stumbling down the porch steps and onto the grass where Robert caught them both. Marcus's lungs were screaming, his skin blistered, but Emma was alive, coughing but breathing. The next hours were a blur. Fire crews arrived and contained the blaze. Marcus was treated for smoke inhalation and minor burns. Emma was taken to the hospital as a precaution but was ultimately fine. Robert and his wife couldn't stop thanking Marcus, but he brushed it off, saying anyone would have done the same. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a father who understood what it meant to love a child so much you'd run through fire for them. 2 weeks later, Marcus was back at work, the burns on his arms healing into pink scars. He came home one evening to find a black sedan parked outside his apartment building. Robert Hastings was waiting by his door, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in Marcus's worn-down neighborhood. Robert's eyes were red, and when he saw Marcus, he started crying. He grabbed Marcus's hand and said, "You gave me my daughter back. How do I ever repay that?" Marcus told him no repayment was necessary, that he was just glad Emma was okay. But Robert shook his head. He'd learned about Marcus's situation, about him raising Lily alone, working brutal hours to make ends meet. Robert owned a successful software company, and he wanted to do something meaningful. He'd set up a trust fund for Lily's education, full ride through college, whatever she wanted to study. Marcus tried to refuse, overwhelmed and uncomfortable with such generosity, but Robert insisted. He said, "You didn't hesitate to risk everything for my child. Please let me do this for yours." But the real moment that changed everything came a few days later when Robert brought Emma to visit. The little girl was shy at first, hiding behind her father's leg, but then she looked up at Marcus with bright blue eyes and whispered, "Thank you for saving me. Daddy says you're the bravest person in the whole world." Then she paused, bit her lip, and added something that made Marcus's breath catch. "When I was scared in the fire, I prayed for an angel, and you came. You didn't even know me, but you came anyway." Marcus knelt down to her level, fighting back tears. This child, this precious life, saw him as an angel when he'd only seen himself as a struggling single dad trying his best. Emma reached out and hugged him, and in that moment, Marcus understood something profound. Kindness wasn't about grand gestures or expecting rewards. It was about showing up when someone needed help, even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when the world was literally burning around you. Lily and Emma became pen pals, trading letters and drawings. The trust fund meant Lily could dream bigger than Marcus had ever dared imagine. But more than the money, more than anything else, Marcus had gained something invaluable. He'd been reminded that in our darkest moments, when everything seems consumed by fire, there are still people willing to run toward the flames to help a stranger. And that made all the difference. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's loving someone, anyone, enough to act despite the fear. Marcus ran into that wildfire not because he was fearless, but because he knew what it meant to be a parent, to treasure a child's life as the most precious thing in the world. We all face fires in different ways, moments when we can choose to turn away or step forward to help someone in need. The next time you see someone struggling, remember that your small act of courage might be exactly the miracle they're praying for. Share with us in the comments about a time someone showed up for you when you needed it most, or when you found the courage to help someone else. These stories remind us that even in our hardest times, human kindness can light the way through any darkness.